Hey guys, today I'm going to do something a little bit different, and that is talk about how you can get addressables within Unity to display the accurate progress of a download of a Unity scene. Now, I've spent the last couple of days trying to figure this out, and it seems that with addressables, Unity tends to change things around, or they just don't work how you would expect. I wasted probably about a day and a half on trying to figure out how to get the percent complete in addressables to actually display an accurate download progress. So first thing first, let's get jumped into Unity. I already have a scene set up here, a very basic one. This is going to be my level loading scene, game startup. And I've attached a camera to it and a UI rather. And it has a progress indicator. You can see it towards the top right of the canvas there, which is basically a spinner. And in the middle, it shows a percentage of the current download progress of the addressable asset. So this tutorial is specific to loading scenes, but I'm sure it can be extended to other assets as well. So I'm going to create a new script. Let's call it load addressable scene. Okay, actually stepping back for a moment. Make sure you have the latest addressables package installed. I thought I did, but as it turns out, you click the little down arrow there and there's new quote unquote unverified versions of addressables. So I updated to 116.16 here. Zoom in a little bit. Make sure that's installed. The next thing, and I'm not going to cover this much here, is that you just want to make sure that you have your addressables groups and profiles configured properly. In my case, I've got two scenes here in my game scenes group. I'm going to be using one of them. And obviously you want to make sure that we're set for the remote load path and that that's pointing to somewhere where you have your addressable assets. I have mine on Google Cloud. Yeah, so just checking out the asset here just to make sure, again, that you have that load path and build path set to remote. Okay, just back to my scene here. Let me just locate my script. I forget already where I've just placed that. Oh, I know, I'll just... I already have one copy of this. This is the second time I've gone through this, so let's load this up. Okay, and we're not going to need the start or the update just yet. Let's add some namespaces here that we're going to need for the addressables. Unity Engine addressable assets. We're also going to need the resource management .async operations namespace. We're going to also need the resource management resource providers namespace as well. And also we might as well bring in Unity scene management as well. I don't know that we're actually going to, well, we'll bring it in anyways. Okay. So let's start off with a serialized field of a private asset reference. And we're going to call this one scene, or actually underscore scene, since it's private in this case. I'm going to need another serialized field for, in this case, we're not going to end up using this, but a private list of asset references. And that's just so that you can load up multiple asset addressables rather than just the scene. And we're not going to use this. I'll come back later and probably comment this out or remove it. In my case, what I'm going to do is disable. I'm going to do this additively, loading the scene. So I'm going to make a reference to my main scene's camera so that I can later disable it when the new scene is loaded up. Oh. Yeah, well, I probably should add the async operation handle above here. And that's going to be of a scene instance, and I'm going to call it handle. In addition to disabling my camera, I'm also going to disable the UI elements on my main loading scene. And the reason that I'm doing, again, this is additive, and that's because once we've loaded up the asset, the addressable asset, we need to keep it in memory, essentially. We need to keep a reference to it. So the main scene is never going to be removed. Because if I remove that main scene, then the reference to my asset disappears, and then therefore my new scene will also disappear along with it. So that's not what we want. The download progress right here and the download progress script reference, that's just to another script that I've written that keeps an eye on what the progress is of the download and just sends it to the UI. I'm not sure we're going to need this, but I'm going to put in the download size. May come back later and remove this as well. Okay, so in awake, I was talking about this a moment ago, but in the awake, we're going to want to make sure that we never destroy the current game object. Again, because if we do that, then we're losing the reference to the addressable asset, which will remove the loaded scene along with it. All sorts of problems there. Oops. Okay, here we go. So in the start, we are just going to reference a coroutine to get things started. Let's call it download. Download scene makes sense since we are downloading a scene. Okay, and enumerator, oops, download scene. All right, and we're going to have a variable to contain that downloaded scene, and we'll call that downloaded scene as well, lowercase d there, obviously, is addressables load scene async, because we want to load this asynchronously, and a reference to the asset reference here, underscore scene. And again, we're going to load this scene in the additive mode. So load scene mode.additive. Download scene.complete, and we're going to watch that with the, let's call it, actually, yeah, let's come down here first. Here we go. Okay, and I'm going to have to come back here later and just pass some stuff in, but for now, scene download complete. Yeah. Output this to the console. I'm going to use log error so I can see it. Start scene download, because at this point it has actually begun the download process, and we are going to set it up so that while the download scene is not done, let's set up a new variable, call it status, and we assign the download scene .get download status. And I think this is new, but I'm not sure. I hadn't seen it referenced a whole lot in the older Addressables documentation, but I could be wrong. All right, we'll set up a float called progress, and that's where we're going to store the current download progress. And this will be in a range of 0 to 1. and we can assign it through the status.percent. So this threw me off for days. All the documentation seemed to point to, I think it was download percent or download, or percent complete or something like that. And it was not a fun time. This is a much better way I found to do it. So again, this is my a script that's external to this that watches the value of the progress and updates the UI. So I'm going to send the values across to that. It's an integer. Since it's UI, there's no point in having it as a float because I don't need the decimal values, just the whole percent. And then we yield return null. I'm going to add in a little bit more output to the console to tell us that the download is complete and that it's starting up the next scene. Oops. And just because perhaps it may not end up at 100%, I mean, for all I know, it could end up at 99.99, I'm going to force this to 100% at this point because technically everything is loaded up. The scene may not have actually started to play, but it's at least downloaded. Okay, so I'm going to pass in an async operation handle, and it's from unity.resourcemanagement.resourceproviders.scene instance, and it is going to be called _handle, I'm going to call it. Yeah, _handle is what I'll go with. Async operation handle. Okay. Now, if the handle dot status is equal to async operation status dot succeeded, then we know that it's successfully loaded. So I'm just going to put some output to the console again. That's not what I want. There we go. And tell us that it's successfully loaded. Okay. Again, in my scene, I have a camera. So I'm going to go ahead here and disable the camera of the main scene because the scene that I'm loading up has its own camera and I don't want them to conflict. And we're going to assign the public, well, not public, but the handle to the private handle here. And I'm going to also disable the UI elements from my primary scene. Okay, let's set up a new IEnumerator. And I'm going to call this one unload scene. I think that makes sense here. Because we want to be able to release the scenes and the objects that we've that we've started up. So we're going to start this coroutine, unload scene. It seems kind of silly to start up the scene and then immediately unload it. So let's yield return and wait for, I don't know, let's say 10 seconds. That way we can see the scene load up for 10 seconds and then, we're gonna wait for 10 seconds and then load things up, or unload rather. So addressables, unload scene async, and we pass in the handle, true. And the completed status for an operation, we are going, here we go, to check if the operation's status is equal to async operation status dot succeeded. And that'll tell us whether or not it's unloaded successfully, or when it has. And in which case I'm going to reactivate my main scene camera. And I'm also going to reactivate my main scene's UI elements. And might as well put some output to console here to let us know that we have successfully unloaded the scene. Oops. No, not downloaded. Unloaded. Right? Yeah. And close that up. I'm going to have this in a cycle. I'm going to wait a few more, let's say 5 seconds. And then I'm going to for fun. Okay, then I'm going to reload the scene again. So it's going to be a bit of a cycle just to sort of show that it's downloading, starting up the scene, unloads the scene, starts to download again. Normally you'd want to make sure that you have your objects cached locally. I'm explicitly not doing that. So it's actually going to go to my Google Cloud server and re-download each time. Let's see if I made any typos in my code here. That doesn't happen often. Okay, drop this in here. And you can see it's the same script as I previously had written, but I wanted to rewrite it in full for this tutorial. Let's get the scene and add it in here. This is the addressable scene. It's already marked as addressable. I'm adding my camera in and my game startup object. And that controls the UI elements here. Disable my original one. Okay, let's have a quick look at the download progress. It's a super simple script. I mean, all it's really doing is keeping the input value of the progress and then providing all it's really doing is keeping track of the current value of the progress. And then let's look at my loading spinner script, which is also pretty simple. So really all it's doing is taking in some input when the value is changed in the progress. Say it's gone from 15% to 16%, send that data along into the into my UI scripts. Okay, so here are my files on Google. You can see I've already uploaded them. So this is assuming, of course, that you already have your addressable assets remotely available, publicly remotely available. All right, let's start the build. Just the one scene, my main scene. Again, you don't have to build the scenes that are marked as addressables because it will be downloading those. And actually, let's have a quick look at the scene that it is going to, that it's going to download and display. Let me find a good view for what's happening here. Okay, here we go. Let's zoom in a bit. 3D or ISO. So you can see it's just a very basic scene with an elevator. So loading up the original scene. Okay, let's go ahead and build now. All right. Now this shouldn't take long because this scene is very basic. It's got maybe 10 game objects in it and just a few scripts. Yeah. So generally it's taken me about 20 seconds to build this scene. Okay. And here, let's have a look at the overall file size, because this is like, it's tiny. Addressables is really helping me to keep my base scene size down. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we can see at the top right that progress indicator. I'm going to zoom in first and show you that we can see that it started the scene download, but the progress indicator is keeping track by % of the overall download progress. Previously, when I was using the % complete, it was a headache. Sometimes the download progress would start at 0.5, sometimes it would be 0.75. There just seemed to be no consistency. No matter how many hacks I threw at it, I couldn't get it to work properly. This one just seems to work right out of the box. So once we get to 100%, that means that it's fully downloaded, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the scene is actually started, because it still takes Unity a moment to actually spin that scene up, but the files are there. So it's turn that down a little bit.
So today's your first day, huh?
So this is only going to last for 10 seconds. Remember, we put that wait for seconds function in there, and here we go again. Okay, so it's loaded up the original scene and we're starting to download it again. Remember how I mentioned I'm going to do this in a bit of a loop just to make sure everything's working, and you can see it's working, it's downloading again. Also mentioned I'm forcing that there's no local cache. Normally this isn't the way you'd want to do it. You'd want to have that local cache. But just for illustrative purposes, I've done this. My internet connection is a little slow downloading from this specific Google Cloud region. I chose Montreal. I'm in Toronto. I chose Montreal thinking that because it's about 500-600 kilometers away that it would be faster, but I think it was the wrong decision. That's only an 80 meg file, and it just took 20-30 seconds. It's too slow. All right. Yep, you can see it's reloaded the scene again. I've got some errors in the console there, but that's unrelated. Okay. It works. So I'm just going to go over this again one more time quickly. All right. So we are getting the asset reference. I'm going to, I'll comment this out just so I'm not confusing anybody, because that's not actually being used. And there is the download size. I never did end up using that, so comment this. Actually, I'm just going to remove it. Make sure I don't think I did use it anywhere. Nope. Okay, remove this. So we make sure we're not destroying the game object that contains this script, because it has the reference to the asset reference. Removing it would destroy that reference, which is not what we want. We kick off a coroutine right at the beginning, which is asynchronously loading the scene, and we're doing it additively. We are checking the completed status on that. I don't think I need... Am I not using... Yeah, I don't think I need... let me clean this up a little bit. Yeah, save that. And I'm just going to... I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to kick off a build in the background here just to make sure that that was okay. I don't see why it wouldn't be okay to do. I just don't remember why I had that there. Okay, the handle, we check the status and see if the async operation status has succeeded. Put a little bit of output rather, and disable my game objects. Then we start up a new coroutine after assigning the handle to the public variable for it. Or I should say the script scoped one. Then we unload the scene asynchronously, and we watch it. And once that process has succeeded, we re-enable the original scene game or camera and UI elements. But before that, while the download is not complete, or while it is done, we check on the status using the get download status. That progress we can then check as a %. And I'm going to say this again. I think I mentioned this earlier. Don't use the and I cannot % downloaded. I think that's what it was. No, it's not. It's the % complete. Sorry. Don't use that. All the documentation seemed to reference it. All of the forums, they seem to talk about this. People had various hacks to try and get it to work, and I never could, and it seemed like a lot of other people can't. It doesn't work as you expect, so don't use it. Just use status.%. Okay, oops. And then I pass it over to my scripts variable as an int, and then I reset, or I force to 100% once it's done. So I want to quickly just make sure that last build worked, because I did make a small change there that I haven't tested before doing this video. I think it's okay. Shouldn't take long to find out. Okay, yeah, it's still working. So we're okay. All right, that's it for now. I really hope that this is useful for somebody out there, because I cannot believe the headaches I've been having trying to figure addressables out, and something as simple as a download progress, or the progress of a download. It sounds so simple, and yet it's been a problem for years now with addressables, ever since the beginning. And again, a lot of the documentation seems to point out one way of doing things, and to me, it does not seem like a good way of doing things. A lot of people online have been struggling with this. I happened to just stumble across this way to do it, so I'm hoping that somebody out there can get some benefit out of this and save some hair pulling and some frustration. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Good luck.